Good morning. Welcome and welcome back. If you joined us yesterday again, thank you for coming. I would like to thank all the presenters and the plenary speakers from yesterday. The feedback we got was very good. Almost everyone was very happy with the presentations. I should say everyone, but someone is going to hold me to it. So I have to be careful with those things. Before we get started, I have a couple of announcements for today. Because of the race, we had to delay for half an hour. So the program changes as follows. The first slot of presentations is going to start at 11:40 instead of 11:20. And the second one at 12:35. So the lunch break will start at 1:20. We have a cancellation. Vicky Papageorgiou at the 7th auditorium at 11:45. Another thing I should tell you is about the Maricel Mayer Scholarship. You can still apply at the registration desk, and the winner will be announced at the beginning of the assembly at 3:30. Also, those interested in the SPLD's SIG, we will hold the first meeting at the Arts Auditorium during the lunch break. We will hold the elections for the SIG coordinator, so anyone who's interested, they can make their way to the Arts Auditorium. Now, before I call on Eftichis to introduce our next speaker, I would like to touch on a couple of things from yesterday's plenaries. First of all, look, yeah. But I think your sources are mistaken. I mean, just because one person had it bad with the tests doesn't mean that children don't enjoy taking tests. It's absolutely not true. And in fact, there was a song written by a student in the 1930s at Twickenham, a secondary school, which myself and Eftichis performed at IIT Birmingham a few years ago. And it was later remixed by a group called the Monty Python for the film The Life of Brian. And it's one of those cases that the remix is more famous than the original. But if I may, I would like to read you some lines from the original. Okay. Actually, this calls also for some audience participation. So during the pauses, you can whistle. Okay? So here it goes. Eftichi, you can join me if you like. So, always look on the bright side of life. And if you hit the books, then you'll be fine. Because even though tests suck, one day you will look back and realize it all was just a joke. Who cares about it now? Doesn't matter anyhow. What matters is it always for the best. And always look on the bright side of tests. And when it is all over, you'll get some rest. You showed them that you're smart, and chicks really dig that. So kick back and enjoy life now you can. So always look on the bright side of tests. Thank you. And now the National Geographic Learning representative, Mr. Eftikis Katarakis, will introduce our next plenary speaker. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Hi. First of all, thank you for coming on a Sunday morning. I know what kind of race you had to be through, literally, to get here. As the representative of National Geographic Learning, I would like, well, it's actually my honor and privilege to be able to introduce the first plenary of the day, Dr. Joan Shin. And she has allowed me to read some of the things that you can find online about here. Not half of what I will say are what make Joan important, though. Joan Shin holds a PhD and she's an associate professor of education at George Mason University. She's the academic coordinator of the Teaching Culturally and Linguistically Diverse and Exceptional Learners, a program with a long acronym that I could never read. Hold on, it's here. The TCLDEL program. She specializes in teaching ESL and EFL to young learners and teenagers and has provided professional development programs and workshops to English language teachers in over 100 countries around the world, including Greece for that matter. She is also an expert on online Tesol education and conducts research on building international virtual communities of practice for English teachers. In 2016, Dr. Shin was named one of the 30 up-and-coming leaders of Tesol by Tesol International Association. She's also the series editor for a groundbreaking 6-level primary course for National Geographic Learning, which explains why I'm standing here, which is called Our World, which won the 2014 His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh English Language Book Award for winner of Best Entry for Learners. She's also a series editor and author of the new 3-level primary course called Welcome to Our World. Her book Teaching Young Learners English, co-author with Dr. Jody Crandall, received the prestigious 2013 Ben Warren International House Trust Prize. Most recently, she served as series editor for an exciting 4-level English series for young teens called Impact, that highlights the work of National Geographic explorers. And she has also authored and hosted the Impact Professional Development videos, which are online and free to everyone, that focuses on how to teach teenagers effectively in the 21st century. This is all nice, and this is what you will find online about Dr. Joan. Well, what I think about Dr. Joan, though, is that she's probably one of the most influential people just by having her around. Her sense of humor, her energy is really contagious. So, honestly, this is all very nice, and this is what makes important people on paper, but I think Dr. Joan is really important in real life. And those of you who haven't seen her yet, well, please take pleasure in the privilege of doing it now. Thank you.
You're going to make me cry before you even get on stage. Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Eftikis, and thank you to Tesol Greece for inviting me to be here with you at this conference. Thank you, Eftikis and National Geographic Learning, for helping to sponsor my travel here. I do want to say that it really is an honor and a pleasure to be standing up here in front of all of you. It's an honor because yesterday I went to many of your presentations here, and I can say that, so I'm standing in front of so many experts, so many creative, innovative teachers and educators that, you know, I feel sort of humbled to be up here to share with you some of my ideas, and a pleasure because I'm here in Greece. And actually my first time here was about 2 years ago when I came for a very short trip to Athens, And then I went home and I told my husband, we have to go to Greece. We must go. I didn't have time to see anything. And so then, less than a year later, my husband and I came here, went to Athens and Mykonos and Santorini, fell in love with the place. And then I found myself back here again for a conference last year, and now again this year. So maybe I'm just trying to find excuses to come here, to spend time with such lovely people and such a wonderful, beautiful culture. So thank you, first, so much for having me here. Thank you. And it's always a pleasure to talk about education, also about teaching our young learners, our teenagers, and our students. All of us here are educators who are interested in not just bettering all the individual students we have, but also improving what we are doing in our society and in the world. And so that is really the topic of today, because we are all concerned about trying to prepare our students for the 21st century. We've been talking about it for a long time, even during the 20th century. And we're already 18 years into the 21st century, and how are we doing? Okay, that's what I want us to think about and reflect on today before we head out to a whole set of another wonderful presentations for the day. And so the title of my presentation is, Are You a 21st Century Teacher? It's a question. So raise your hand high if you believe I'm a 21st century teacher. Okay. All right, you seem pretty confident, and that's good. Okay, so in one sense, you're all teachers, right? It is the 21st century, so anybody by default. You're all 21st century teachers, but there's some things we want to think about to see, are we doing everything we need to do for our learners in this century and for what they need to be successful and effective and productive people? Okay, so the first thing I want to take a look at, because I think I chose this picture because I think it truly represents what it means to be a 21st century teacher. Okay, and what do you see here in this photo? Okay, you might notice that is me up here. Okay, and can you guess who I'm with? Yeah, in fact, they're not my own children. These are my nephews. That's my new title. I do have 2 kids of my own, but these are my nephews. So this is Connor and Benji and Max. And what are we doing together? Can you imagine? Maybe reading? Watching a video? Okay, so you can see that I'm holding my iPhone here. I'm not putting in a plug for Apple, so I cover the Apple. So in fact, I chose this photo because it's more about this scenario, right? I mean, I could be holding a storybook as much as I could be holding a piece of technology in my hands in front of my nephews. But the point is, and in fact, a book was a piece of technology once, am I right? Yeah, we're just now starting to figure out how to use them well. But it doesn't matter what I'm holding. The point is what I'm doing. Whatever it is we're holding, whether it's a piece of technology, right, a video, a storybook, whatever, it really is still all about us as a teacher, as a caregiver, as a parent. What are we doing with what we're holding in front of them to make it comprehensible to them, meaningful, useful to them? Okay? And so really, when I think about teaching in the 21st century, we always have to start first, right? Is what we're doing meaningful, purposeful, and relevant to our students? We know this, but that's why I want to take this time to reflect. And to reflect on, okay, how has the 21st century changed our approach to teaching? Meaning, has it changed how we make things to our students meaningful, purposeful, and relevant? And I'd like us to think about that through this presentation and maybe through the entire day. Okay, now, let's think about the 21st century. I'm going to show you an image, and this is actually from Alec Couros from the University of Regina. And this is what he said represents the typical teacher network in the 20th century. Okay, so for example, here are you, the teacher, okay, and you have access to curriculum documents, Okay, interacting with your colleagues, popular media, print and digital resources, and also making that connection to family and local community, right? Okay, that looks familiar to you. Okay, and then what he shows as the 21st century teacher network is like this. The network teacher, okay? How many of you feel like this teacher now? Okay, so the network teacher, it's not just about the curriculum documents and your colleagues' popular media, print and digital resources, and the local family community connection. There's blogs, there's wikis, and video conferences. You're chatting, right? You're networking socially, and you've got a variety of different types of information that you can have access to. And do you sometimes feel overwhelmed with all of that as a network teacher? Yeah, raise your hand if you do feel like this teacher is a bit overwhelmed. Yeah, exactly. Well, I just want us to, first of all, take a deep breath. Everyone, just take a deep breath with me. And of course, we could say, yeah, look on the bright side of life. Or just take a breath and remember, okay, that yes, we're trying to keep up with this whole network society. We're trying to keep up with our students. How many of you all feel like you're always behind your students in terms of technology and social media and resources? Yes, absolutely. You all are behind your students, right? So one thing that I want to mention, and this comes from a guy named Mark Prensky. Of course, he coined that term, digital natives, digital immigrants. You may accept or not accept that aspect of his work, but something I found interesting in his work was that he talked about educational technology in terms of nouns and verbs, which I think is brilliant for us as language teachers, okay? And so he talks about the verbs of educational technology. These are the unchanging skills of education, such as thinking critically, communicating effectively, presenting logically, and calculating correctly. Okay? And then the nouns are the tools of education, the technologies that students use to learn and practice the skills. Now, if we look at the nouns and the verbs, okay, knowing that as educators, sure, we need to address the nouns and the verbs, right? But which one is more important? The nouns or the verbs? The verbs, yes, because those are the unchanging, right, skills of education. And so, although one of the messages I want to impart is, yes, we are responsible for trying to integrate both verbs and nouns into our language, the nouns are the things that you're never going to be able to keep up with your students. They're on to the next noun. They're on to the next tool, right? You're still Facebooking, but they're on Instagram. You're never going to keep up, okay? So, but as an educator, can you always be able to teach them how to think critically, how to communicate effectively, how to present logically, how to calculate correctly? That's really the point, okay? So we can breathe easy thinking that, okay, if we look at verbs here and the nouns here, maybe we'll never keep up with these nouns, but we can certainly, as educators, be responsible for those verbs. So that's why I want you to take a deep breath, right? Because even though you might feel overwhelmed, it still is not about the technology itself, but it is about how to use that technology. All right. So just to wake you all up, okay, because it's the morning, I have a scenario for you, okay? And this is a true scenario. I met a teacher in the country, I won't name, and this eager teacher wanted to integrate technology into her instruction. Okay, and so she decided to teach students to use something called wiki spaces, right? Which is at its end right now. But in any case, teaching students to use wiki spaces. She required them to copy and paste their assignments on the wiki for homework. And she was very proud of herself, she said, that she felt like, oh, I was teaching them to use some technology, as well as doing their English homework. Okay, so my question to you is, and I want you to turn to a partner, was she successful in building 21st century skills? Okay, so just take a moment, introduce yourself to the person next to you if you don't know them, and just decide, was she successful or not? Okay, just 30 seconds, a minute. Okay. Attention. Okay. Does anyone want to share what they think about this question? Was this eager teacher successful? Who thinks yes? Who thinks absolutely not? Okay. Okay, go ahead. Let's pick a volunteer. Anyone who wants to speak. Go ahead. Sure. Very good. I'll get back up.
Yeah, but I've got this switch it on. Yeah.
We think she was not really successful because students are good at technology and they download things like every day. It's easy for them to copy and download something. And if you want to develop 21st century skills, it would be more interesting to ask them to do some collaboration project online, to do something online together, or to go watch a video and express their ideas so we could develop critical thinking, so collaboration skills, but based in, like copying and based in somewhere information is not 21st century skills. So we do not develop anything because they are good at that already.
Yeah. Okay, and so it doesn't seem like it was very useful skills for them. They probably know how to do it. And in fact, the students were very annoyed with the teacher because they were like, ugh, before I can just do my homework, hand it to the teacher, and then she hands it back to me the next class, and then I get it and I get my feedback. Now she's adding this extra step where I have to go and get on to Wikispaces, learn how to use that, and put it up there, something I'm never going to use again, okay? And also, it's not like it's developing certain 21st century skills or using Wikispaces in the way it was intended as a wiki, right? It's just uploading, downloading documents. So again, though she thought she was integrating technology, there was no point because, again, it was not meaningful or purposeful or relevant to the students, which is exactly what you're saying. They thought it was a waste of their time. Okay? So the idea is that, there's technologies, maybe even wikis or blogs, social media. The idea is that you have to make sure, you shouldn't just be trying to catch up with what you think students want to do and learn. Right? You need to make sure it's truly meaningful, purposeful, and relevant to them. So how has the 21st century changed our approach to teaching? Still, let's think about that. Okay? And I want to show you a video clip. Okay, and it is a clip of this TED Talk by this guy, Eric Whitaker. And how many of you are Eric Whitaker fans? How many of you have never heard of him, but are slightly interested, because he looks, pretty handsome, pretty cool guy. All right, so I'm going to show you a clip of this TED Talk. But what I want you to think about are two things. One is, what does this say about how we communicate in the 21st century? And the second thing is, what does this mean for us as English teachers? Okay, those are your two tasks. And now I'll play the video.
Well, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine emailed me a link, a YouTube link, and said, "You have got to see this." And it was this young woman who had posted a fan video to me singing the soprano line to a piece of mine called Sleep.
Hi, Mr. Eric Whitaker. My name is Brittany Lucy, and this is a video that I'd like to make for you. Here's me singing Sleep. I'm a little nervous, just to let you know.
Thunderstruck. Bridlin was so innocent and so sweet, and her voice was so pure. And I even loved seeing, behind her, this little teddy bear sitting on the piano behind her in her room. Such an intimate video. And I had this idea, if if I could get 50 people to all do this same thing, sing their part, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, wherever they were in the world, post their videos to YouTube, we could cut it all together and create a virtual choir. So I wrote on my blog, OMG, OMG. I actually wrote OMG, hopefully for the last time in public ever. And I sent out this call to singers, and I made free the download of the music to a piece that I'd written in the year 2000 called Lux Aurumque, which means light and gold. And lo and behold, people started uploading their videos. Now, I should say before that, what I did is I posted a conductor track of myself conducting, and it's in complete silence when I filmed it because I was only hearing the music in my head, imagining the choir that would one day come to be. Afterwards, I played a piano track underneath so that the singers would have something to listen to. And then as the videos started to come in, this is Cheryl Ang from Singapore. This is Evangelina Etienne. Massachusetts. Stephen Hansen from Sweden. This is Jamal Walker from Dallas, Texas. There was even a little soprano solo in the piece, and so I had auditions. And a number of sopranos uploaded their parts. I was told later, and also by lots of singers who were involved in this, that they sometimes recorded 50 or 60 different takes until they got just the right take. They uploaded it. Here's our winner of the soprano solo. This is Melody Myers from Tennessee. I love the little smile she does right at the top of the note, like, yeah, no problem, everything's fine. And from the crowd emerged this young man, Scott Haynes, and he said, listen, this is the project I've been looking for my whole life. I'd like to be the person to edit this all together. I said, thank you, Scott. I'm so glad that you found me. And Scott aggregated all of the videos. He scrubbed the audio. He made sure that everything lined up. And then we posted this video to YouTube about a year and a half ago. This is Lux Aurumque, sung by the virtual choir.
How did you like that video? Impressive, amazing. And I asked you to think about, what does it say about how we communicate in the 21st century? I mean, it's amazing to think about each individual person in front of their computer screen recording their one part to become a part of this collaborative whole that's so beautiful and something we've never seen before. It's incredible. And I think it is through the social media, through the technology of being able to scrub that audio, all of that, bringing people together to be able to create things we've never seen before. I think it's beautiful and wonderful. It always brings a tear to my eye to see that. The other thing you have to remember is that the inspiration came from that girl who sent him, Eric Whitaker, that fan video. So that sparked the creativity, reaching out to someone to be able to get him to think, could be something new, something that we can all do together around the world. And I think that is beautiful. And I think that it speaks to the potential for if we can try to communicate in this way globally. And so one of the lessons is, in the 21st century, of course, despite all the innovations in technology, the 21st century is truly about connecting people around the world. And hopefully we're connecting around the world, not just for ourselves, but also to work with others to create new things, new solutions, things we've never seen before. So we know that communication is global. I want to make sure we're always thinking, yes, technology is a tool, okay, for the communication. It's the noun, it's the tool, but it's what we do, those verbs, it's what we do with it that can make a difference in the world. And of course, something that's unspoken in this project is that English was a tool. Okay, so you can go and watch a TED Talk and see what happened. There was like 200 some people, but in the end, he created a virtual choir with like over 2,000 people. But English is a tool as well to be able to get into some of these kind of global projects. By the way, you may or may not know about w3text.com, but they do all kinds of analytics on what you can find in the World Wide Web. One thing that they analyze, so they analyze what is the most popular widget, what's the most popular social media tool. They also show the languages you find in the World Wide Web. And of course, does this surprise you? It shouldn't surprise you, although the percentage of web content in English used to be greater, but there wasn't as much diversity in the languages. Now you can see much more diversity in the languages, but English still remains, of course, dominant in the World Wide Web. So obviously that means for our students to access information, to get involved with things that are happening globally, English is an important tool. So again, let's think about then, if we know this now, what are ways that we can make what we do in the classroom meaningful and purposeful and relevant to our students? Okay, I do want to point out something else to think about. This is a headline that was from December in 2018, not too long ago. And the article, this is from the Washington Post. The surprising thing Google learned about its employees and what it means for today's students. What is the surprising thing Google learned? I'll read you a little bit from it. Okay, I put it right here without putting the article up. So it talks about Project Oxygen, which is a project trying to look at what are the most important skills. Are you familiar with the term STEM? It's very popular now. What does STEM stand for? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Now they also talk about STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. In any case, just checking, because I'm going to read you what was in this article. Project Oxygen shocked everyone by concluding that among the 8 most important qualities of Google's top employees, STEM expertise comes in dead last. The 7 top characteristics of success at Google are all soft skills: being a good coach, communicating and listening well, possessing insights into others, including other different values and points of view, having empathy toward and being supportive of one's colleagues, being a good critical thinker and problem solver, and being able to make connections across complex ideas. STEM skills are vital to the world we live in today, but technology alone, as Steve Jobs famously insisted, is not enough. We desperately need the expertise of those who are educated to the human, cultural, and social, as well as the computational. So I know that you as educators know this, but we have to make this real in our classes. Okay? So of course, you're familiar with these 4 C's. Everyone's been talking about this throughout the conference, and especially focused on creativity, right? We know communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, very important. I would also like to think about 21st century skills using another model. Okay, Dr. Pictures next. Okay, which is from the assessment and teaching of 21st century skills, okay, in which they take these skills and they express it in terms of ways of thinking, right? Ways of working, tools for working, and ways of living in the world. And I like this framework because I think as educators, it can help us to apply these to our classroom. Okay, so I'm going to first give you just some examples that I think maybe you can think about. So in terms of ways of living in the world, right, these soft skills that are so important, right, we need to make sure we are building a global perspective in our English language classroom. Okay, so let me take you through it. Of course, I have had the privilege of visiting many classrooms around the world, and this is what I still see as a commonly used approach, right? We're relating content to students' lives, good, right? Home, family, school, and friends. Okay, but we teach English, and so I see this most commonly. We're introducing students to English-speaking cultures, like American culture, or culture from the UK, or Canada, Australia. But of course, we know that's not enough, right? And why? Because the status of English around the world has changed. And who are English speakers? You can find English speakers from any country or culture. Okay, so you must be familiar with this sort of old model, right? Cashew circles of English speakers. If not, that's okay, I'll take you through it, right? Cashew talks about the inner circle countries in the US, UK, etc. The so-called native speakers of English. And then you have this outer circle of English speakers in countries where English has it's an official second language, or it has special administrative status, like India and Singapore. And then this ever-growing, expanding circle. Okay, these numbers, of course, come from David Crystal, right, where we see over 1 billion, maybe even more than that, speakers of English as a foreign language, okay, much like here in Greece. Okay, so what does this mean? Of course, it means that everybody is really an English speaker. We're all learning English. We're all using English to communicate. So English being a global language, it does require that we teach about different cultures. Okay, so I'll talk about the target culture, international target culture, and source culture as defined by Sandra Lee McKay in her book, English as an International Language. Okay, so the target culture comes from that inner circle. This comes from McKay. International target cultures from all these other countries around the world. And then source culture, if like here in Greece, right, that would be your home culture, okay, from the expanding circle. So the question is, right, how can we then integrate all of these different cultures? Okay, I'm going to give you an example. It's a simple one for kids, okay, to show how it's not that hard to do that. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about this, PB&J sandwiches. What are PB&J sandwiches? Peanut butter and jelly. Raise your hand if you're a fan of peanut butter and jelly. Woo! Okay, how many of you are not a fan, but you know what they are? Okay, so I am going to teach you a song called the Peanut Butter and Jelly Song. Maybe some of you, if you've been in my presentation before here in Greece, you might have seen this. Okay, but are you ready to learn it in case you don't know it? All right, so this is an example, of course, American culture, because PB&J sandwiches are very American. All right, so first, can you all hold up your hand? Hold up your hand. Okay, now just imagine you have some peanuts in there. Okay, so how do you make peanut butter? You have to go like this. You crunch them. Crunch them. Okay, so repeat after me. How do you make peanut butter? Yeah, so repeat after me. First, you take the peanuts.
First you take the peanuts
and you crunch them. Very good. Okay, so now we need to make some grape jelly. Okay, so hold out your hand. Imagine you have some grapes. Okay, and you need to go like this to make grape jelly. You have to squish them. Squish them. Say that after me. Squish them. Squish them. Okay, so to make jelly, repeat after me. Then you take the grapes.
Then you take the grapes.
And you squish them.
And you squish them.
Very good. And then you need a piece of bread. Okay, your hand is a piece of bread. You can take a little bit of the peanut butter and spread it. You can take a little bit of the jelly and spread it. Very good. Okay, so repeat after me. Then you take the bread.
Then you take the bread.
And you spread it.
And you spread it.
Good, are you done? No, you need another piece of bread, put it on top, and make a sandwich. Okay, so repeat after me. Then you take the sandwich.
Then you take the sandwich.
And you eat it.
And you eat
Okay,
it.
so now you know how to make peanut butter and jelly. Now let's sing the song. And I want you all to stand up to sing the song. Everybody stand up. Okay. It's early in the morning. I want you to just stretch, 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 stretch. Your arms up. Ooh, that feels good, right? Stretch. Ah. All right, so there's a little dance. Wait, I heard there was dancing last night. Okay, so the dance that goes like this, all right? So you're going to wave your hands in the air on one side. And then put them down on the other side. One more time. Raise your hands, shake your hands in the air, and put them down. Now, if you're feeling, like alive this morning, then when you take your hands up, you can add some hip movement to it, and then put your arms down, okay? All right, so I'm going to start singing it. Just follow along. It's very easy. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. One more time. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. First, you take the peanuts and you crunch them. You crunch them. First, you take the peanuts and you crunch them. You crunch them. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. Then you take the grapes and you squish them. You squish them. Then you take the grapes and you squish them. You squish them. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. Then you take the bread and you spread it. You spread it. Then you take the bread and you spread it. You spread it. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. Peanut, peanut butter, and jelly. Then you take the sandwich and you eat it. You eat it. Then you take the sandwich and you eat it. You eat it.